Hi guys, it's your girl Just Shaz and we're back with another video. I have a very special guest today. This is Sonia. Sonia is interviewing me, so this is actually her project. I'm just hopping on because,
Thanks for helping
we
me.
always need YouTube content.
Yes.
So I don't know when this is dropping, but whenever it does, make sure do you want people to follow you on Instagram?
I actually don't use Instagram currently because it just gives me too much anxiety.
That's
so
fair.
just no
this
social
is,
media.
This is the only time you'll see Sonia then.
Yes.
In that case.
But hit that subscribe button.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah, hit the
Down
subscribe
there.
button. Make sure you like, comment, share, and yeah, hopefully y'all enjoy this conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ready?
I'm at your disposal.
All right.
Yeah.
So Tisi, the reason why I reached out to you was because I have a project which is on multiculturalism, and we have the same we had the same path coming from. You're Zimbabwean, from Zimbabwe to Eswatini, UWC, and then now at Alum College.
Yeah.
But you're not just a student.
Yeah.
You're a staff.
Staff.
So we have so much to talk about.
Because where are you originally from?
I'm from Burundi.
So I'm from Burundi. Did you also then just come to Eswatini for UWC?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Waterford Kamhlaba. Okay. So my first question, I guess I would ask is, how did going from Zimbabwe to Eswatini to the US, did that influence kind of how you see yourself, your identity?
Yeah.
Just everything.
All the things.
Yeah.
It really did, because we moved from Zimbabwe to Eswatini when I was 10. And 10-year-old Tsitsi was very annoyed when we moved to Eswatini and people didn't know how to pronounce my name. So before we even get there, when we were still in Zimbabwe and I was telling my friends in Zim, I was like, oh, we're moving to Eswatini. Back then it was called Swaziland. We're moving to Swaziland. Everyone was like, oh, can you bring us back chocolate? And I'm like, it's just surrounded by South Africa.
Right.
They're like, no, but you're going to Switzerland, right? I'm like, no.
Oh.
So anytime I said Swaziland, people heard Switzerland and would immediately assume we're coming back with chocolate or we're going to some faraway place, to Europe somewhere. But I was like, we're literally just going across the border, guys. It's not that far. But then when we moved, because we moved when it was third term for Eswatini, so I'd already done grade 5, term 1 and term 2. So I was now joining in Eswatini as the new kid in term 3. And if you know anything about joining high school back then, it's not nice to join towards the end of the year, because this was in August, September. So then the first week no one could pronounce Tsitsi and I got so frustrated and I was like, no, I'm going to reinvent myself. My name is Sharon. So literally for the 12 years that we lived in Eswatini, I went by Sharon.
So is Sharon your middle name or you just came up? Oh,
Sharon is my middle name.
Oh,
yeah, so my name is Tsitsi Sharon Choice Makufa. Choice is my mom's name and my grandmother's name, but no one really calls me Choice except my dad, basically. But then I went to Sharon, and then one of my friends who I just met, she was like, I'm gonna call you Shazzy. And then that's where the Shazzy nickname came from. So that's where Just Shaz for my YouTube, that's where that comes from.
Cool.
So literally for the entire time that I was in Eswatini, I went by Sharon. And only when I got accepted to college to come to the US, I was now wrestling with I don't want to come to this white man's country with a white name, because at home, because I'd been going to international schools my whole life as well, even in Zim, everyone already was saying, oh, you sound like you have an American accent. And now that I'm in America, I'm like, you guys don't know what an American accent sounds like.
True.
But when we're there, everyone would say, you have an American accent, you have an American accent. So now I was like, I'm not going to go to the US with my American accent, say my name is Sharon, and then people won't know where I'm from. And I didn't want that. So then that's when I changed back to my name being Tsitsi. So in terms of culture and all the things that you're asking about what I wanted to do, I think I definitely felt the cultural shifts each time we moved, and I felt more stronger pull to embrace my Zimbabwean identity when I was moving to the US, because I felt like when we're in Eswatini and Zim are similar in some capacity, that I didn't feel the need to always say that I'm from Zimbabwe or bring in Zimbabwean things, because the two were just very similar.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I love that. Because it's kind of you just wanted to change it so that people don't have to struggle with it.
Yeah.
But you know what fascinated me was that now you're with white people and you're making them say titi.
I am. All the variations. Tisti, tutsi. And I'm like, yeah, bite your tongue.
Deal with
If you can pronounce Arnold Schwarzenegger, you can pronounce Tutsi. It's literally just like 2 syllables.
Oh my gosh.
So for me, I really didn't care. I don't care when I'm here. I want people to know I'm not from here at the moment they meet me. But in Eswatini, I feel like maybe it's just a Southern African thing or like a black people thing when we're all home. Then even the concept of being black wasn't even a thing when I was home. I don't know if you felt the same way, but it's only when I came to the US that like I'm told I'm black. But when I'm home, I feel like we're all...
You're one of them.
You're just one of us. You know? Yes, you're a foreigner because you're Zimbabwean living in Eswatini, but we were all just black and we're all foreigners, but there wasn't this vibe that is like so othered. I mean, obviously we have other things like colorism back home, where like if you're light skinned, you're treated a little bit differently than if you're darker skinned. But other than that, so I didn't feel the need to correct people for my name. I was just like, call me Sharon.
Well, even when I was in Zimbabwe, I would like, people wouldn't know that I'm not Zimbabwean. Only when I started talking, and they would be like, just speak in Shona. Like, no, I can't. Then they ask me where I'm from. But yeah, it's just really like all the same. But hey, my follow-up question would be related to that. If there is any like cultural values or practices from home, and I don't know how, like, which one do you identify most with? Because you were in Swaziland for like 10 years, you were in Zimbabwe for 10 years, but both of your parents are Zimbabweans.
Yeah.
So do you have like, I don't know, things that you're like, hey, this is so good, I'm not going to let it go, I'm going to stick to it?
Every time I go home, and people laugh at me all the time, we were just home for a wedding in December. Every time I go home, I have a 23 kg suitcase dedicated to coming back with food.
Oh my gosh.
Like, literally, I come back with the milli meal to make pap, and make sadza. I come back with spices like aromat, and I come back with Seravita. If you were in Zim, you know
Seravita is my favorite.
We literally came back with 24 packets of
God.
Seravita. I come back with mazoe, like I make sure we come back with matemba and different things. So in terms of food, I think that's always going to be the main connection for me, and especially what I miss the most when I'm here. But when we're in Eswatini, like anytime we went to Zim, we wouldn't come back with food because we could find most of those things in Swaziland, so it didn't feel like we needed to do that. But having spent half my life in Zim and then half my life in Eswatini, I feel like I still don't identify as a Swazi, and as much as like Eswatini will always be part of me, if someone asks me where I'm from, I always say I'm from Zimbabwe. And it's always interesting to me when I came to the US, like a lot of the students who went to UWC, you would ask them where are they from, and they would mention their home country, but also the country that they spent just 2 years. And I'll be like, but that's you're not from there.
True.
There was this one girl, she would say like, I'm from Germany and Singapore, and it's like, oh, like who's from Singapore and who's from Germany? She's like, no, like both my parents are German, but I went to UWC in Singapore. And I'm like, really? Like, and that was such a weird experience for me, because despite spending literally half my life in Swaziland, I've never said I'm Swazi. And that's just my thing. It's like I don't feel the desire to claim the country as my own, but also I never learned how to speak Siswati. I understand it better than I speak it, but because I went to international schools, even in Swaziland, we were taught English and French. So I actually know more French than I know Siswati, which is very sad, because I'm like, colonization really did the most. But I wish I had learned how to speak Siswati, and then maybe I would have felt more of a pull to also say I'm also Swazi. But that's just not something I felt. I don't know if you felt the same, because how many years did you spend in Zim?
I spent a year in Zim, but for me, I just loved it. I loved the culture. The moment I went there, I was like, the first thing I'm gonna do is learn their language. But it was more like, because I didn't know English, so Zimbabwe was where I was introduced to English first. But I was like, I think if I'm gonna want to make friends and like have networks and everything, I'm gonna have to know at least the greetings. So I learned that, and I loved it. I loved going to visit the Great Zimbabwe and all the falls and everything. So it wasn't more like I'm immersing in the culture. It was more like I just want to learn it because I'm here. I might as well just make it fun.
Yeah.
But I can never say I'm Zimbabwe. Well, no, I can't say I'm Zimbabwe.
Yeah. I mean, but what you just explained makes sense in terms of there was no language that could join you and the Zimbabweans besides like learning English or learning Shona, right? But for me, I think as a 10-year-old moving to Eswatini, the friends that I immediately met at primary school were none of them were Swazi.
Oh.
So my core friend group is 6 of us. I'm Zimbabwean. We've got 2 Nigerians, 1 Ugandan / Tanzania. Actually, yeah, she's Ugandan and Tanzania, and then 1 full Ugandan and 1 Ghanaian. And all of them had been raised in Eswatini, but they didn't speak Siswati either. So it's like that being the core group of friends, there was no reason for me to then try to learn Siswati because the language that combined like all of us was English. So we didn't need to learn Siswati. So sometimes I wonder if like I didn't meet those girls and I made a different set of friends who were Swazi and primarily spoke Siswati, I probably would have then had been forced to then learn the language a bit more. But as a 10-year-old, it didn't feel like something that I needed to. But now when I look back, I'm like, dang, it actually feels low-key embarrassing that I spent half my life at Eswatini and don't know how to speak the language. I'm like, come on. So if there's something I regret about living in Eswatini in terms of the cultural awareness, I definitely wish I had learned the language. Because I feel like I learned everything else about the culture. I learned about their like reed dance that they have. I learned about like all of the cultural celebrations they have in the year. And in my house, like right now, we have the Zim flag and the Swaziland flag. And we always come back with the lihiyas and all of the things in our home. So you see a lot of Eswatini pieces and Zimbabwean pieces in our house, but then the only thing we don't have is language.
The language.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's okay. I guess you're catching up.
I know.
Like bringing all the things. Yeah. What else would I? Okay, now going into the United States. So you came from UWC, Waterford, and then Earlham College. And how was the transition? Because I don't know if you experienced as much culture shock in Eswatini. I just want to know how was the transition here. Did you find any kind of misconceptions about like African cultures? Just tell me all the things.
Oh, I heard all of the misconceptions coming to the US. So I graduated from UWC in 2017. That feels like so long ago. When did you graduate UWC?
2023.
Oh my goodness.
2 years
So
ago.
yeah.
Oh, do I have to wait to look at the camera?
Oh no.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to see our faces? But no. So there was a culture shock for me. I have 2 older brothers, and they had already come to the US at least 3 years before I did. So in terms of like little things about the US, they'd already come to tell me whenever they'd come home during the breaks. And back home we had DSTV, and a lot of the movies we watched, like I was very much into Disney Channel. I loved Hannah Montana, Camp Rock, all of that. I was obsessed with Hannah Montana. Let me not even like say I liked it. I loved Hannah Montana. I wanted to be Miley Cyrus, you know. So I feel like watching a lot of American TV, it was coming to the US then felt like a lot of the TV I used to watch started making more sense. But there was still culture shock. Like the food was definitely a culture shock. Everything was so much bigger. Everything had like more salt, like more oil. Like I just find the food here very greasy. And I didn't like that. But it's like, this is the food that we have here now. What can you do? But in terms of people assuming things about me because we're African, the first thing was actually language. So when I came, there was this one girl during orientation, like NSO, and she was like, oh, like, how did you learn to speak like English so well? And at first, you know, because I'm still new, I would answer like, oh, like English is actually one of Zimbabwe's national languages. So we're taught English in school, just FYI. You know, colonization, we like have the languages, but not many people know that. People think we just have like Bantu languages and that's all. But then by the 3rd week of someone saying like, oh, how did you learn to speak English so well? I was like, let me just see how gullible these people are. And I was like, you know what? I had a 19-hour flight coming here, and this really nice pastor who I sat next to on the plane, he taught me everything I know. And I just watched this girl's face go like, oh my gosh, did you take his number and tell him that you're doing well now? And I was like, girl.
Oh my God.
That would be amazing. Imagine being able to learn a whole language in 19 hours and even communicate
and
that
they'll
with
believe
it.
it.
And they'll believe it.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. So that was that. I was asked, oh, so did you have to buy all your clothes at the airport? I'm like, no. Like, we do wear clothes at home. Like, no. So there's still the assumption that we don't wear clothes. And then I was asked also, like, what kind of pets do you have? And I was like, oh, when we were growing up in Zimbabwe, we had dogs. And they're like, oh, I thought you were going to say you had, like, pet lions or, like, pet elephants. So I'm like, no. Those are wild animals that I would only see at the park.
Okay, not to interrupt you, but that first week of NSO, how did that make you feel? Like, did your mind try to kind of make sense of what's going on, or like, did you question anything about like the education, or like how come these people don't know that actually I've spoken English since I was born?
Literally.
Yeah.
I felt more like sorry for them and their ignorance more than anything, because I actually experienced the ignorance before I came to the US. I don't know if you guys probably didn't have a Facebook group, because now Facebook is not a big thing here.
So it's Instagram.
Yeah, but when I was coming, our class of 2022 had a Facebook page, and there you could introduce yourself. You'd be like, hey, my name is Tsitsi, I'm from Zimbabwe, I'm really excited to like meet some of you. And I posted that on the Facebook group, and then one person commented and was like, oh, Zimbabwe, like, where is that? I've never heard of that country before. And it's like, if you have the internet to be able to comment on Facebook, like you've never heard of Zimbabwe before, you could have taken literally those 2 seconds to literally put that in Google and say, where is Zimbabwe, and figure out where it is. And then you can come back to the Facebook comment. So for me, that alone, before I even stepped foot to the US, I was like, I'm really about to meet so many ignorant people who, despite all the internet access they have, they don't have the willingness to learn. So I was met with more like an annoyance that I would just brush off whenever that would happen. I didn't necessarily question like the education as opposed to like questioning the person themselves. Like, you literally have the access to the information if you wanted to find it. You're just choosing not to.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how you felt your first week when you came.
My first week, actually, I don't think I experienced something like that. Maybe because I was just hanging out with my people. When I came here, I had, we are like 6 people from the same UWC, so I was just hanging out with those.
them.
I didn't have the opportunity to like be with
Branch
other
out.
people. But I just feel like the ones that I have currently, the friends that I have currently, they ask me about where Burundi is, and Burundi is just such a tiny country. And people who ask me where I'm from are much older, and even though they don't know about the country, they would just, ask me how it's spelled, and then they'll go and search it, or like ask me what it's about. But I've never had anybody like assume that some crazy stuff about it. But I have friends though who go to other universities where like people would assume crazy stuff like, what kind of blanket, or what did you get? Do you guys have blankets in your country? And then the people were like, you know what, I'm just gonna play with them and see how far we can go, and say, oh, actually I was at home and I was going hunting, and then I caught this zebra, and then I killed it, I took the skin, and now
I made my own blanket.
This is how we do it.
And
it's just crazy. People would believe it. And I don't know, I guess this is gonna be a really good point for my presentation. But I guess now my question, we're just nearing the end, is what advice would you give to freshman Tsitsi about navigating different cultures? And I know you just deal with so many things, and I know people would feel kind of, they will have pity for you or anything like that. I don't know, is there any advice would you give to yourself, or You know what? Let's just answer this one and then I'll have a follow-up. Yeah.
Yeah. So because I was always the new kid, I was bullied a lot in terms of like high school and primary and moving. So college was the first time that like I really got to reinvent myself, and like so even coming in as Tsitsi instead of Sharon, it felt like a new era for myself.
Yeah.
So I guess like advice to freshman Tsitsi would be like, don't be scared to try out this new thing. But even I want to give advice to like 10-year-old Tsitsi who just moved to Eswatini. I would have definitely told her to like be a little more excited about the culture you just moved to, as opposed to like just wanting to keep the Zimbabwean side of things and wanting to assimilate. I think we assimilated, but I assimilated with a lot of like other fellow foreigners within Eswatini, that we didn't really branch out into more of the like Swazi culture. As much as now when I look back, I would have wanted to, especially now that, like, because we used to have a house in Eswatini, but now my parents have moved to the UK. So now when I'm saying I'm going home, it's either I'm going straight to Zim or I'm going to the UK.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to Eswatini anymore. And that makes me really sad. And I think the reality of like needing to have kept parts of Eswatini really hit me when I was coming back from my senior year in 2021, because then we had to pack out our house in Eswatini, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is my last time being here. And that made me really, really sad. But I think like advice to freshman year, Tsitsi, was just like, don't be shy. I think I was very shy and reserved in my freshman year, and I only like got out of my cocoon a little bit more like towards sophomore year, but then COVID hit. And then I went back into my shell. And then only when I came back for senior year in 2021, I was like, okay, like we can have more energy and more zeal, you know? Because one thing that I definitely lacked in freshman year was confidence in myself. And I know it's connected to the fact that I was always the bullied kid or the new kid. I didn't really have a lot of confidence in myself, that I always work a lot to like just be part of the group, instead of like knowing that whatever I have that makes me stand out isn't a bad thing. Because more often than not, the things that did make me stand out growing up were the things that I was bullied for. So then as a coping mechanism, I was like, okay, I'm not going to stand out then. I'm just going to be like a part of the gang, a part of the group. But now, like, as I'm growing up, I'm like, oh, I definitely was just the girl. And I should have embraced that, you know? Embraced whatever made me different, embraced whatever like made me stand out. So I think that would be the advice that I would give myself, that I would also give to any freshman. Like, don't be afraid to just be who you are. Your tribe will always find you, as I think the thing. Because that's the advice.
Let me just say, you are that girl.
Yeah.
Can I tell them the things that I like about you?
Yeah.
I love your smile. I love your hugs. Titi gives the best hugs. Most people are going to agree with me. But yeah, you know the question that came into my mind while you were explaining how moving from Zimbabwe to Eswatini, now your parents are now living in the UK, you said, and you just got married. Oh my, so you live here, your parents are living in the UK, you've spent the last 20 years in 2 countries, so what is home for you?
Oh my
How do you define home?
I love and hate that question so much, because at this home, when my parents were still in Eswatini, home was Eswatini. So if someone asked me, like, where's home, I would say I'm originally from Zimbabwe, but my family and I live in Eswatini. But ever since we moved, like, UK doesn't feel like home. UK just feels like where my parents live. So I don't think I'll ever call the UK home. But so at this point in time, I think home for me is now Zimbabwe. That's home. But at the same time, like, I think home is wherever, like, Kelvin and I are, you know, that I think that's just home. And I think I felt the pressure of that when I came back. Like, after we packed out everything in Eswatini in 2021, I really felt the pressure, like, when I graduate, it really has to be Kelvin and I now figuring out, like, where our home is going to be. Because home is no longer Eswatini. Home is definitely not going to be the UK. And I left Zimbabwe when I was 10. So in as much as that's home, in terms of, like, that's where my roots are, I really felt the pull to have to figure out, like, where home is. So it's only when, like, after we came back from the wedding and I was like, oh, we're home, like, coming back to the US. And that felt very strange to call the US home, because, you know, I feel like being an immigrant in America, we're always fighting so many things to feel like we belong, that to call this place that has actively, where the systems have actively told us time and time again that they don't want us here, to call that place home just feels very icky for me. But then like home is like the little bubble that Kelvin and I have built, that we like, I know I can come and just be myself around him and being myself around that space, that I think at that point, like wherever Kelvin is, I think that'll be home. But I feel like that sounds very cliche.
No, I love that so much. I wasn't expecting that, but that is so good.
But talking, like, I've been talking to my therapist about this a lot, that ever since we came back from Zim, because we spent 3 weeks in Zim, I felt the community so much at home. Like at home, I was like, wow, this is what we're missing when we're here. We don't have the like all the women surrounding us, all of the like uncles and aunties and grandmas like here with us, that I've been feeling like that loneliness that comes from being here. That now when I'm thinking about home and us being married, we like, because Kelvin's family also lives in Eswatini, funny enough. So it's like, what is our marital home going to look like? Are we taking things from like the Zimbabwean tradition? Are we taking things from the Eswatini tradition? Or are we bringing in like the liberal thinking that's in the US into our marital like home? So I think that has been like interesting, trying to navigate like which world are we gonna build for ourselves? Because it's so convoluted. There's so many aspects that we can mess around with, because we don't agree with everything in Zim, we don't agree with everything in Eswatini, and we don't agree with everything here. So it's like, what are we gonna bring in now? So now our home is just a melting pot of so many things.
Wow, that's so beautiful. That you get to call someone home. I love it.
He has seen me in the most weirdest things. Like I can be my complete self with him, and like I've seen him do the weirdest stuff, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like I've actually asked him, I was like, were you always this weird? And then he will laugh up like, so I can definitely see like we both just let loose and you can be yourself. And I think that's been the best part about like being with him. It's just, I think home is wherever we both are with each other, because we can just be ourselves. And I think and there are not many spaces, especially in the US, that I feel comfortable enough to just allow myself to be fully me without having to either like over explain myself or like have to make somebody understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. But I can just do whatever, and Kelvin will be like, I get it. And I think that's the best feeling.
That is so good. Okay.
Find love, guys.
Find love.
Love is a beautiful thing.
But hey, speaking of the loneliness, I know the loneliness is always gonna come. Speaking personally, it's like my mom, 31 hours of flight back home. Of course there are friends, but that loneliness will always be there until you find, I guess, someone that you can call home. But is it worth it to come here? It's so much away from home. Do you like, would you tell someone who's considering leaving their African home to come here and like study and I don't know, because you are building your whole life.
I know.
Here.
Oh my goodness. This question is coming at a very difficult time. Where like we've been considering and reconsidering like how long we want to spend here, especially after this. It's just, I guess we've been having to like wrestle with this idea of choosing your heart and like what aspects of your life do you want to actively struggle with and what do you not want to struggle with. At home we didn't have to struggle about community or making friends or like having people surround us that we don't have to explain ourselves to. But then there also aren't that many opportunities because of how like our economy in Zim is currently set up. So we know if going home, it means struggling to find a job or struggling to like make ends meet, you know. But then when you're here, you're like, okay, at least I have the job, at least I'm making ends meet. But then on the other side of things, we don't have the community. We don't have the like circle of people surrounding us. And that's a really hard thing to have to accept. So I think there's been a lot of like acceptance, actions towards acceptance. I don't think I've fully accepted it yet. I think there's a lot of like energy trying to accept that this place as our final place, but not I don't even want to call it the final place. We're gonna go back to Zim at some point, because Zim will always be home. So I don't know. The question is I'm still wrestling with it. I think
Right.
we're both still wrestling with like what does our presence here mean and for how long. But for right now, as like young professionals, as like young 20, well now we're no longer young 20 somethings, but as 20 something year olds, I think this is where like God wants us to be, and we're saying okay.
Yeah,
We
I
don't know
love
where
that.
things are going, but if this is where you want us to be right now, we'll take it. And then if at some point God decides that this is no longer the place for us, I think we'll listen to that, and then we'll figure out what the next plan is.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to figure that out like right now.
Yeah.
You can just
Yeah.
have some long term plans.
Yeah. I was just visiting my friends in Texas, and we met. So those are some of the core friends I was telling you about that I met in Eswatini. And I left and I was like, I really wish we all just had houses next to each other.
Yeah.
Like where we could just start our little neighborhood. So where we grew up, we had like all of the aunties and grandmas, and all the women would come around you and support you when you start a family. But then here it's like, if we have a kid, it's me and Kelvin, and that's it. Like obviously we have our friends here, and I'm so grateful for like the friends that I have here. Shout out to Kate for holding your girl down here, you know. So I have people like that here who really make this place feel worthwhile, feel like home, and I'm grateful for that. And I just wish we had more.
Yeah. I think I was telling my professor, the one I'm doing this project for, that back home there's this thing that like children they're raised by a village, and like for me that means so much, because even before coming here, it wasn't just my dad and my mom just putting together an amount of money. People came in, they're like, flight ticket, we got that, and everything. And that is not something that is here, but also you don't encounter. I don't know if the US they do stuff, it's just this individualistic worldview, whatever. But also it's like there are gonna be some trade-offs. We can't have everything,
exactly,
but also it's kind of like finding the joy in everything.
Yeah,
like, if you have time, go visit your friend
exactly
in Texas, call them.
Finding the joy in everything. I think that basically sums up where our life is currently, is finding the joys in everything. Like there can be so much to complain about. Like if you go up the mountain to look for gorillas, you will find them. But if you go up the mountain to admire the view, you can admire the view. So I think that's just the idea of like finding the joys in everything. That if you go on a hunt for things that are like not going well, you will always find something not going well. So I think finding the joys in everything, definitely. That's what we're trying to do. Because, oh my goodness, the life of an immigrant in America is not for the weak. Because, earlier you asked if I would advise anyone to come here. And I think, for opportunity's sake, I would say, like, I'm never gonna shame or, like, be so ungrateful to tell people not to come here. But I think there's definitely, like, an awareness that people should know that when you're coming here, what are you sacrificing, and just like know what you're sacrificing, and if that's something you're willing to sacrifice, then for sure like come here. But I think like when I came, I didn't realize just how much we were sacrificing coming. I think I then met that sacrifice when I was already here. Looking back, I don't know if I knew what we were going to be sacrificing if I would have come. I don't want to say yes or no, because looking at where my life is now, it's exactly where we need to be, and I'm very grateful for that. So I think that's just up to like an individual person. Like, what are you willing to sacrifice? And maybe you don't even have to decide before you come. You just either you meet it like us when you get there and you realize that okay, and then just let life happen, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. That's some of the questions you have.
That's it. I learned so much. I'm gonna go back to the videos and take notes, because I wasn't taking notes.
That's fine.
But this was so good. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. I feel like I haven't gotten a chance to talk about this on my channel yet, so this is helpful. I also got to think a lot about the things. I'm like, wow, I hadn't actively thought about this.
Right.
Yeah. So this was also helpful for me. Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for watching. I don't know how long this video ended up being, but it's less than an hour, so attention spans, I know. Watch the video.
There are some good stuff too.
Right? If you made it to the end, thank you for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Mwah. Peace and love.